to another Smaulgld live stream. Today is September 8th, 2019. And today we're going to do some speculating, because I think what's happened in the Bitcoin space is, in many instances, the Bitcoin maximalists gain control of the narrative, and they start with certain assumptions that everyone seems to follow, and perhaps, well, this episode is going to challenge some of those assumptions. The title of this episode, Is It Time to Call Quits on the Lightning Network? Is this a solution in search of a problem? Now, just some brief background on the Lightning Network. The purpose of the Lightning Network is to help alleviate the inability or the strain on the network, the Bitcoin network, to scale. The biggest cut against Bitcoin for a while was that it's not ready for prime time. And we had the whole debate over SegWit, and then we had the block size debate. But we haven't really examined whether Lightning Network is the way to go. Because what they're saying is, many people, that second layer solutions are the way to go. We just do all the transactions off-chain. We've come up with at least Lightning and a few other solutions, and then we just put the transaction back on the blockchain and everything stays just like before, and it's all going to work. Well, Lightning Network has now been around 3 years, and it's not really working. When I say it's not working, not that it doesn't work as a practical matter, it's just that no one uses it. We're going to show some statistics on the build out of the Lightning Network, and remember, it's been out for 3 years now. And so what I'm starting to think is that yes, there are issues with the bigger blocks. That's somewhat of a closed. It may temporarily alleviate the issue when you have another blockchain like Bitcoin Cash and BSV. And yeah, sure, you can get more transactions done, but then you run the risk that at some point those blocks fill up. What do? Just make bigger and bigger blocks. And then you have the issue is whether that blockchain can be secured, whether it's just a big centralized processing house and is not truly a decentralized blockchain. So it has been 3 years now since, and I think a lot of people maybe forget that, at least 3 years when Elizabeth Stark published an article about how Lightning Network can alleviate or can help solve the scaling issue. But one of the things that we hear from Bitcoin maximalists is that every other coin is a shit coin and that everything has to revolve around Bitcoin. There's no developer work on Litecoin. Other coins are merely just clones of Bitcoin. They serve no purpose. And they basically take the point of view that there needs to be one centralized, decentralized blockchain, and that is Bitcoin. However, we have seen that this Lightning Network has not taken off whatsoever, so the issue of scalability still exists. And yet maximalists insist that this is the way forward. There's no other solution. The big block theory is out. And they'll tell everybody, they'll use the word Lightning almost as much as they use the word shitcoin. And that's it. There's no other discussion. It is Lightning or bust. But again, we're seeing that that is not necessarily what the market or how the market is treating Bitcoin. Bitcoin is looking like is going to be used, as the Bitcoin maximalists often say, is like digital gold. It is becoming the preferred crypto asset to hodl. Just like gold. And it's not a cut against Bitcoin, but people don't spend their gold. There is a theory that bad money drives out good money, and people hold the good money. So I'm not against Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin, but the idea that Bitcoin has to be all things and everything else is Bitcoin, they're not taking into account that every other asset or coin may serve a function that is useful, that doesn't need to be served by Bitcoin or can be better served by another asset. So if what happens to Bitcoin, what appears to be happening with all this institutionalization, holding Bitcoin in ETFs eventually is what the goal is. You now have backed, or people are storing Bitcoin in ETFs. I mean, in the backed warehouses, you've got a lot of institutional business where they've set up regulated warehouses where you can store Bitcoin. If that ends up being where the bulk of Bitcoin resides, well, that's basically what the market is saying Bitcoin is, a digital asset. Now, unlike gold, there is a practical use of Bitcoin a much more practical use, if you're storing Bitcoin in large amounts, it can be used very easily to exchange as a medium of exchange, but maybe it'll be used as a medium of exchange to buy yachts, luxury homes, and Lambos, not coffee. Now, the advantage of Bitcoin in a real estate transaction or a large transaction is you're transacting on the most secure blockchain in the world. The amount of hashing power, the number of confirmations that it goes through. But is that really needed for coffee? And is that really what the world should be focused on, or at least the Bitcoin maximalists think it should be, is creating a system where you can use Bitcoin for everything. If the bulk of Bitcoin is going to be stored and it's going to be held by large institutions, they're going to be happy with it as a store of value, not necessarily as a medium of exchange. Now, again, the maximalists will say, well, once it goes through its store of value, it'll then be used as a medium of exchange. You don't know that. This is unlike anything before, because remember, when you use the gold and silver analogies, they're not quite exact, because gold and silver were valuable and used as commodities before they were used as money, and then they were used as money, and there's always been that commodity versus money dynamic that goes on as to whether especially with silver, whether silver is any type of money or monetary metal or whether it is a commodity. But when you're looking at Bitcoin, Litecoin, and other cryptocurrencies, they were created to be medium of exchange. People started storing them, which probably, I don't know if Satoshi anticipated that, but 10 years in, that Bitcoin would be this massive speculative asset, or even not medium exchange, a massive, I'm trying to think of the word, because I never associate it with Bitcoin. I associate it with gold, which is a safe haven, is a store of wealth. I don't think that that's what Satoshi had in mind with Bitcoin. If you read the white paper, it's meant to be a peer-to-peer payment system, not necessarily a store of value. So my point is that the market has taken Bitcoin in a different direction. And now it seems like the people behind Bitcoin, or not the people behind it, but maximalists are insisting that Bitcoin has to head in a different direction, and that is to get these transactions. And I love to look at the Great Pumpkin, because now it's possible that Lightning will take off and Lightning will be a big deal, but it is 3 years on. We're going to show you some statistics, and the assumption amongst Bitcoin maximalists is Lightning's a done deal. It's going to happen. And they'll tell you till you're blue in the face when you mention any other type of coin that might be used for transactions, whether it's Zcash or Litecoin or Dash or Monero. They scoff at that. That's it. They are not the coins to use. It's going to be solved by Lightning Network, so we won't need any of those coins. Now, here's a question. Well, maybe the bigger block issue doesn't solve everything, but perhaps more secure blockchains may solve the scalability issue. Why does everything have to scale on Bitcoin? If Bitcoin, the blockchain as designed, is filled up and you've got transaction delays and so on, why not move on to another secure blockchain? Well, you say, well, those blockchains aren't as secure, they're not as large, and they're run by shitcoins and so on. Okay, but does that mean that all future blockchains or current blockchains will always be not ready for prime time? I would argue that some of the blockchains out there right now, Dash, Litecoin, are ready for transactions, and transactions do occur on them. And indeed, Abra has used Litecoin as an alternative on its platform when the Bitcoin blockchain got too clogged up. So rather than move over to Lightning, why not move over to another secure blockchain? Now, you say, well, those blockchains aren't as secure as Bitcoin. Fine, but there's a reason for that. If there really was a demand for this amount of transactions, then other blockchains would develop. There's nothing to say that they can't develop. They just haven't developed, and partially because the overflow on Bitcoin is not so great, and the demand to transact is that so great. In fact, the demand for Bitcoin is more to store than it is to transact. But if you see people clamoring to transact in cryptocurrencies, and they're not, well, then maybe we have a solution in search of a problem in trying to get a Bitcoin to work to buy a cup of coffee. So rather than arguing that there's no need for Litecoin once Bitcoin Lightning Network is up and running, perhaps there's no need for the Lightning Network if we have Litecoin or Dash or Zcash or, dare we say, Bcash or another transactional blockchain that suits the purpose. And I think it's the Bitcoin maximalist idea that there can only be, I don't know where they get this idea. In history, somehow there was only one money. But that is something that a lot of Bitcoin maximalists believe and they think is destined to happen. I mean, the spillover on Bitcoin for transactions, if indeed a lot of transactions are happening on-chain on the Bitcoin network, can be handled by other secure blockchains that if there's an economic market incentive, you will get mining in other coins. You will get merchants accepting other coins. You will get trading in other coins. Indeed, yes, Bitcoin may have 70% trading market share or may have probably 95% of all the hashing power. I don't know the exact numbers, but other blockchains can become secure if they're used. But when you take the point of view that, no, there's no need to use another blockchain because as soon as Bitcoin can handle enough transactions, we'll all just move over to Lightning. Well, what if people don't want to move over to Lightning? What if people don't want to stake their coins? What if enough channels are not opened on Lightning? Why does it have to be Bitcoin if it can't scale on chain? Why bother? Why bother creating this off-chain Bitcoin network, Lightning networks, and so on? And really, the reason we don't know the answer to that question is it's almost like they're anticipating market demand that doesn't exist and may never materialize. But if it did materialize, it may be that the market is not going to select an off-chain Bitcoin solution. They may. Again, this is speculation. So the way I look at it is Bitcoin maximalists want to take this tank to buy coffee at the local corner shop. Sure, you can drive a tank a half a mile, park it in the parking lot, jump out and buy coffee. But why would you do that? Because you have a tank and you only have a tank and you can never buy a car, you can never use a motorbike, you can't use anything else. You have to use your tank. So you got to equip the tank so that you can buy coffee with it. Well, I don't see why you would need to do that unless you believed that tanks are the only means of transportation, tanks are the only means of protection, tanks are the only tactical weapon you could ever have. Everything has to be a tank. And you must equip the tank to perform all functions. Now, if you're smart enough, you can. You can make a tank into many things other than just something as a defensive or offensive military weapon. You could create a tank, but why would you bother to do that if there's other vehicles? But again, the idea is with Bitcoin, there should be no other vehicles. Somehow it all needs to go into the centralized, decentralized blockchain, and it has to be Bitcoin. But let's look at the Lightning Network before I let you go, and I'll take your comments. So far, I mean, this has been going on for a while. The Lightning Network is open and running for business. It's 844 Bitcoin capacity. There's 36,000 channels, and I would say that it's not a success. But, then you get the whole, you'll see, and maybe you're right. Maybe we will see. Maybe no cryptocurrency. None of these cryptocurrencies become so large in terms of transactions that we need to even have more blockchains. Maybe Bitcoin itself will be enough and you don't even need Zcash, Dash, Litecoin. But if you do get more interest in conducting transactions quickly and securely with cryptocurrencies, it's possible that other blockchains could develop rather than people having to stake coins and opening up nodes. And then you have issues whether these things are going to be legal in every country, whether you're going to have money transmitter issues. So the idea that Lightning is a slam dunk and that Bitcoin is going to be the only coin, I'm just suggesting maybe that's not true. And it's not a case for any particular altcoin, but the idea that every other coin other than Bitcoin is a shit coin, I think is a foolish proposition. Let's see what you guys think.